Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Talk with Christy Godwin and Friends. I am Christy Godwin, your resident psychic medium, and I'm here with Marie, who has quite the story to tell. And I want to welcome her here today. Thank you for being here, Marie.
Thank you for having me, Christy.
Now, what Marie is here to discuss today is some things that happened as she was growing up. Some trials and tribulations, some traumas that occurred, which we all have them, but she grew up in a house that's where Donald or Don Studey, according to how you know him, was in resident. Her mother was married to him. Is that correct?
Yes.
For those of you who do not know who Don Studey is, he has been not proven at all, but accused of taking the lives of many women. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what's come to light.
So now how Marie and I met is I was doing an event and she was there. And then when she came to me, I'm a psychic medium, but she didn't really come to me for a reading. You came to me just to kind of discuss, to get some ideas. And so I want to first thank Marie for honoring that pull, because that's what's called a synchronicity in my industry. When you feel pulled or connected, like she came to my home office and she didn't really know why she was here.
No.
She did, because I sat down, I was like, okay, I was basically questioning her and myself. I'm like, where are we going with this?
Yes.
Now, something that did come up instantly whenever you come to my office, because I am a psychic medium, I'm tapping to see what spirits are around you, because I'm assuming you're here. And so I did know that you had a mother energy, but I didn't bring her up right away because you and I were discussing. And you kept mentioning that your mom had taken her own life. Now, is that what you were told?
Yes, that's what we were told.
And so as Marie is telling me this in my head, I mean, I didn't know her, and so I wasn't going to argue with her because she had been told your mom had taken her own life. But the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, your mom did not take her own life. No. And every time she said that, the spirit who had identified as her mom was like, nope, nope, nope. So then we get to the point where, as a medium, an evidential medium, so I did give evidence of your mom so you could prove that's who it was.
Yes.
And you did, yes, what I said about your mom was correct and all of those things. But now what was funny is I'm not the only medium who had told you your mom did not take her own life. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I had met with another medium. I think it was in like 2019. I just felt pulled to get a reading. My mom had just kept coming up in my daily thoughts. And it's just, ever since we were told that she had taken her life, I just didn't feel like that's truly what happened. But I couldn't prove it. And there was no autopsy done. So I just accepted it was what it was. But throughout life, it kept pulling and pulling and pulling, saying, no, she didn't do it. She didn't do it. And I met with another medium, and she said, no, she didn't come through as taking her own life.
And so now Marie didn't let that information out until I said to her, your mom did not take her own life. And then Marie said, another medium told me the same thing. Now, the only thing that we were differing on is the other medium said that she had been strangled. And I didn't see that. I saw that she had been incapacitated. And but they said that your mom took her own life by shooting herself, correct?
Yes.
And that's what I saw. But I saw your mom's hand on the gun with someone else's on top of it. And I did feel like that she was not herself, but I felt like she was more, I felt like she had gone through some trauma that day before that event occurred, but I also felt like she was kind of drugged. She just had that feeling when I tap into spirits, I get certain feelings, and it's one I get when someone is really, they have drank a ton, or they mixed drink and some other kind of substance, and they're just kind of really out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's where this all started. And
Yes.
I did notice which was kind of odd because as I'm talking to my client, your mom's standing there and I noticed she had a lot of other people with her, but I really didn't think much about it at the time because when you come to me for reading, I just muddle through the spirits.
Right.
But then it came out that maybe your stepdad has taken other people's lives.
Yep. Then I alluded to the truth of why I was there.
Yes. And that's when then I would say it all came to light. It was at this moment I was like, okay. But she's like, yeah, he's, yeah. And I was like, there's a lot of people over there. And you're like, yes. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned that his daughter had come forward over the years and had been telling people.
Yes.
And now I just want to say the second you said that, I got chills and I knew that his daughter, and again, when I say I knew, I'm a psychic medium, there is no proof, there is no writing, that she was lucky to be alive.
And she's alluded to that in all of the stories that are coming to light now. She's alluded that she always felt that she could be the next one.
I think there were 3 times in particular I was shown that he came very, very close. And when I'm asking, like when I asked Spirit, I was like, why did he not go through with it? I think because when he was taking other people's lives, he could kind of cover it up. There wasn't a huge thread connecting him to the women, so it could be traced back to him.
Yes. Which I believe.
When I say that, I'm also seeing that there are a couple of men that he took their lives of, which I'm not quite sure. We can get into that in another podcast, but I am saying that there are a couple of men. So I think the reason that he didn't take her life is because it would have brought too much attention to him. Like if his daughter disappeared and she had already been talking about him taking the lives of all these other women, that would have just caused way too much microscope on him.
Yeah, I always wondered why he didn't hurt me.
For you, it was the same. You had protection. And when I say protection, not physical protection, but you had family because he was your stepdad.
Yes, he was my stepfather.
You had a dad and sisters who would have moved heaven and earth.
Yeah.
To get you justice. And he knew that.
Yes, I always guard me angels.
Let's go back to, now we've kind of set the preface for this. Let's go back to when you first met him. Do you remember first meeting him?
Yeah, she brought him to the house and stuff, and introduced him to us. He was a very nice guy, very charismatic, funny. And then he had brought his children. He had a son and 3 daughters. One of his daughters is my age, and then his youngest is in between me and my little sister, and then his older daughter and older son are I think within a year or 2 older than me. Mm-hmm. So but we all got together, had a good time. I stayed out at their place in Iowa a couple, on the weekends and stuff when my mom would go visit, and then they would stay at our house in town. They got married within about, I want to say about a year of meeting each other. It wasn't a real long, courtship, if you want to use that word. And then things just started getting worse. It's like it was Jekyll and Hyde. He just started getting very violent, angry. And
so now let's go back to your mom was a single mom. Your parents had divorced.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Was this the first gentleman that you had really met?
Of my mom's?
Mm-hmm.
No, my mom dated different men, and she would always, because us kids were around, she was a single mom and we were young, so she couldn't just leave us at home. So sometimes she would meet different guys and stuff over at friends' house and stuff. And then sometimes she'd get sitters if she was going out, but
he wasn't the first one you had met, but it was the first one that your mom had really gotten serious with.
Yes. Yep.
Now, what I hear, when when I tap into these situations, you can either hear it psychically or from, your mom who is in spirit. I say he was very charming.
He was. And he actually was a handsome man. I
I
mean,
hear that. I hear that he was the term your mom has used. Yes, she's in spirit. So yes, the term your mom has used, knight in shining armor.
which I could see her seeing them that way.
Like he was handsome, charming, funny, and he wasn't rich, but he had enough money to support a certain lifestyle.
Mhm.
And great, like he just really in the beginning made your mom feel like he absolutely adored her.
Yes,
And you remember those times?
I do. She was very happy. I mean, she was in love. Um, yeah, see, that's why it wasn't all bad. And it just turned bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what turned it bad. It just always made me wonder what happened.
So now some of this information for everyone listening or watching, according if you are, watching it on my YouTube channel or listening to a podcast outlet, some of it will be getting psychically. Now, what I hear is that this gentleman had always had this side of him, and your mom was not the first person that he had abused and been mean to, and ultimately, I'm saying took their lives, but just know that has not been proven.
Yes.
There is a lot of speculation. Other people have come up and said that, but it has not been proven up to the point of this recording.
Yes.
And he was very good at hiding that side of him until he got what he wanted. And when I asked, well, what did he want? I'm hearing that once they were married, I feel like he kind of isolated your mother.
He did. That's very true.
That's what she's showing me. I'm just feeling like she was, I'm from Louisiana, so I have the reference of being out in the woods. So I feel like she even lived remotely.
We lived in town, but he had gotten to a point where we would always go like see my grandparents or cousins and stuff. But it got to a point where we didn't see anybody. It was always with him, with his family, or just at his place in Iowa. We didn't do much with my family.
I am seeing that. I'm seeing very sheltered, very controlled lifestyle. And it didn't start out that way. That's the thing that I want a lot of people to realize, that abusive relationships don't usually start out, boom. It's a gradual thing that starts, it's very gradual until you get to a point where you don't recognize your life anymore. Yeah. It's nothing like it used to be. And so there's probably not one time that you can pinpoint and say, this is when it happened. It was just a gradual. And even physical abuse, typically, not always, is the same way. Is that the way it happened for your mom? Do you remember the physical abuse being gradual, or was it just boom on?
I think it was more gradual, because I don't remember it being, it would be like he'd hit her or push her or shove her. But towards the very end, it was really violent and bad. And
now, was he very picky about the way she cooked food or what she cooked?
I don't really remember that.
Did a lot of the violence occur in the kitchen? Your mom keeps showing me her being in the kitchen and being afraid.
Yeah, the kitchen is where a lot of them did happen.
Okay.
So it's about the food. I usually ended up coming home like in the middle of it. I didn't see a lot of it start. I would always be the one that would end up showing up as it was happening and breaking it up. Because I'd get in the middle, or I'd, pull him off, or because I wasn't going to stand there and watch him beat my mom.
And how old were you when that was happening?
I think I was only 13.
I can imagine you, a 13-year-old girl, taking on a grown man.
I still, sometimes I look back, and that's why I'm always surprised I didn't get hurt. I truly am surprised. I mean, I would get thrown or shoved into cabinets, or, there was one time he grabbed me by the neck and held me against the wall. But that's why I was always amazed I didn't get hurt.
I was like, why? Why didn't you? And it was because he was afraid of you.
And maybe it's because I wouldn't stand down. I wasn't going to stop.
You weren't going to stand down. I'm hearing that you were mouthy, like you
Yes.
weren't afraid to tell your story, but you had people that would listen and believe you.
Yes.
Because I'm hearing, when I was like, you had a dad and siblings, and was it a grandmother? There was another female in your life who would listen to you and believe you.
I had a grandmother.
Mm-hmm. And because I was asking your mom, yes, for those of you listening, this has ended up being a three-way conversation. Her mother is here helping me. She was the one showing me about the abuse happening in the kitchen, and about how you also had this grandmother who was not, I mean, your grandmother was fierce. She wouldn't have had it.
Nope, I'm named after her.
Well, there you go. That's why I said I feel like a huge connection between the two of you, and your grandmother was like, nope. She herself would have barehandedly taken that man out had he hurt you. And you kind of knew that. I feel like you didn't protect him. You protected your mom a little bit by not saying the extent of what was going on.
Yes. I never really alluded to how violent the house was. I kept it from my father because I knew that my father would hurt him. So I was basically protecting him.
Mm-hmm. But you weren't protecting him for his sake. You were protecting him for your mother's sake.
And I guess I truly realized also, I was protecting my father also. I didn't want my father to be involved in all this. I just, now I look back and I probably should have said more to maybe stop all of it. But at that point, I don't know if it really would have.
And you were 13.
Yes.
You were 13. I see this not only for people like you looking back and saying, oh, I should have done this, or maybe I should have done that. You were 13. Also, I see people, which really gets my ire going, is when I see adults questioning kids like 13, 12, 10-year-olds. Well, why didn't they do this? Because they are children.
Well, also, this happened. It probably would have been like the late 70s. Like the very late 70s, early 80s, where back then children didn't have any rights. They didn't listen to children. I mean, women didn't even have many rights. I mean, even for them to press charges or to even be believed that they were going through abuse. I mean, it was a different time. It was
absolutely was. And what I'm hearing, and I don't know if what I'm hearing from the spirit world, and I don't know if this is something you can say, yes, I remember that happening, is the neighbors could hear some of this ruckus going on and no one called.
No. I had one neighbor that was up the road that I would always go to and use their phone to call the cops. And then there was other neighbors down the other way on another end of the block that my little sister would go to. And those were probably really the only two neighbors that really believed us and that would do something. The rest of them just kind of they just, back in those days, you just mind your own business.
There's a lot of that. Even today, there is a lot of that. Not as bad as it was back then, but there is still a lot of, ignore it. It's not your, not your business.
Yep. You don't want to be involved.
When you said that so let's go back. He has started getting really violent and very abusive to your mom. And now as a medium, one of the rules of a medium is the mediums aren't supposed to cry, right?
Yes.
And so we're sitting here, I'm muddling through all this information, digesting it, talking to Marie's mom, who's in spirit. And I look up and I realize that all those people that I saw behind her were not her relatives like I had first assumed. Because I didn't really tap into them. I was talking to your mom. I looked up, there's other people behind her. Didn't really think much about it because as a medium, that's how I work. I tapped the first spirit and then just worked my way through the ones behind them. I realized that these women And again, this is not proven.
Not
Proven. These are women who passed at the same hands that your mom passed from, which would have been your stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
They were horrifically treated before their passing. And so at this moment, the entire enormity, and so I start tearing up, and I was like, Marie, you're not supposed to make the medium cry. But it was just, I'm very clairsentience, which I feel, and I could just feel some of that fear and hopelessness. And now it's just for anyone watching, I have okayed spirit to let me feel that because it's part of my reading ability. It's how I got a lot of information. But they were not, I knew that they were just giving me a teensy tiny pinhead of the amount of emotion actually rolling off of them. So I would understand a little bit of it.
Yeah. And that day that I was with you in your office, my whole body was just like vibrating and tingling. And so I was feeling, I don't see, I just feel. But I could tell there was just a lot going on in that room.
Yeah, it is true. And also what happens is when you are with someone who is like, you're already yourself open to the spirit world a little bit. So then when you're with someone who is so tuned into the spirit, then it creates an energetic whirlwind. So you can feel it even more.
Yes.
And you're right. There was a lot going on in my office that day.
I know.
Anyone.
I would have thought I would have brought all this to you.
I had no idea, you don't know what your days are going to be like. So now whenever what do you remember a time when you realized this is getting bad or he is not who we thought he was going to be? Do you remember a specific moment when you thought those thoughts?
I think the one that I witnessed, the one where I realized that it was really bad, was in the kitchen. I had come home with my little sister. We had come in the front door for some odd reason. We never used the front door. And he had her on the floor and was basically like standing on her neck, choking her. And I told my little sister to go. And then I pulled him off. We scuffled in the kitchen and stuff until she could get off the floor. At that point, I realized something just wasn't going to get any better. It was getting to the point where I was wondering if he ever would know when to stop. You know what I mean? Sometimes I would see him beating his children, and he'd get to a point and he'd just stop, because he must have known, it's at a level stop. But at seeing him in that light, I was like, will he ever stop? I mean, will he know when to stop? Or is it going to get to the point where he does kill her, whether it's intentional or that he just couldn't control his rage? But it was kind of scary.
I imagine. And so up to this point, you had probably, because you witnessed things as a kid that you don't pay much attention to. So I'm assuming at this point you had witnessed like little pushings. You probably witnessed him abusing his own children, but it had not gotten to the point where you were like, this is so beyond normal abuse.
Yes.
And so now I just think back to that little girl who was 13 walking in and witnessing this grown man standing on her mom, and your mom is sure at this point is struggling for her life. Someone's standing on your throat, you can't breathe. Mm-hmm. And you know what your first reaction was to protect your sister.
Yes.
This little 13-year-old, and how definitely what I call an old soul for you to be thinking through that, okay, for you to be able to, do you remember, was it kind of like an out-of-body experience? Because I feel like you can almost recall that moment in a great amount of detail.
Yeah, it's just like a switch goes off in my mind and I'm like, no, stop. And bravery, courage, it just comes up. It's almost like I'm not me. It's, I'm not even thinking. I'm not thinking of what the repercussions are going to be. All I know is protect, stop the fighting, help my mom. And it is a weird, because I look back and I'm like, why would anybody walk into that?
I think what is different now, do you remember because you have children yourself, do you remember when they were growing up and when they were about that age, the age that you faced that, looking at them and thinking, I cannot imagine them having to face that. Do you remember
Yeah,
thinking that when they were growing up?
I do. I truly, my daughter's the light of my world, and I just can't imagine her having to face that. I just, but I guess too, I live a very simple, quiet life. I don't, maybe it's just living all that violence growing up. Our household is very loving. We don't scream and yell at each other. There's no slamming of doors. We live in just a very quiet lifestyle. Because I don't want all that anymore. That's not what life's meant to be.
It isn't, but I do want to give yourself some kudos and some credit for you made that choice. There are so many people, I'm sure you've witnessed it, who recreate that generational trauma instead of stopping it.
Yes.
You did.
Yes.
So
and
now
I
your
am
sister,
really blessed.
yes, but incredibly strong. And when you came here, like I would not have agreed to have you on my podcast and do all these things. But there was something you said that was like, yep, I'll do this. Because you said we have to face it with love. We have to face it with love, healing, and hope.
Yes.
So that's right, because there is enough anger and vindictiveness in this society right now.
And there is. And ever since this came to light, just I don't really watch the news, and I don't really get on like Facebook and all that stuff. So my family has been kind of just keeping me informed on what's going on. And some of the stuff that they bring to me is just heartbreaking, because his family, they're just being so mean and, I don't know, attacking each other. And it's like, you guys should be supporting each other and loving each other through this. And because if it's true, I don't even know if it's true. I'm just speaking from my experience with him. And he wasn't all bad.
Right.
You don't want to think that anybody could be like that. And I truly understand. It's like, but they should love each other at this time, not tear each other apart.
Right. You're absolutely right. And, everyone wants to blame. And now your stepdad has already passed.
Yes.
And so the person to blame is gone.
Yes.
But whenever, I'm sure you have people that are on both sides of it. I told you so. I told you something was wrong with him, and other people who just don't even want to think that that kind of personality could exist in their family. So then they're going to be all angry and, pushing back, because there's no way when the truth has not even come out yet, for sure. Now, I was the same way. I do not listen to the news. I did not know this gentleman's name until at the end of the appointment last time. I asked you his name.
Yes.
Even when you told me, I had no idea who he was. Now, I want to go back to the moment where you protected your sister, because this is your baby sister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does she remember any of the fights or any of the abuse he would dish out on your mom?
She remembers like this. She remembers probably like the screaming and yelling and stuff like that, but she doesn't really truly remember the elevation of the abuse, because I could sometimes see it coming, or because even like when he was beating his children and stuff, I would make her leave. She doesn't need to see that. And we just knew in my bedroom, there was a window that I always kept open, and there was like a air conditioning unit under it. And I would just always tell her window and just make her leave. She didn't need to see it.
You saved her so much emotional trauma.
Yes. Because
so as y'all got older, before this came to light, of how, now they're thinking he might have taken the lives of many women. Before that came to light, did y'all discuss those times, or is it something that was just part of your childhood? Y'all moved past it?
It was pretty much just part of our childhood. We had moved past it pretty much after my mom passed. We discussed some of it and everything, for probably a year or so, but then we just kind of let it go. Um, my little sister, she was always mama's girl. She was mama's baby. I was more of a daddy's girl. And so it was really hard on her to lose her mom in such a violent way. So there was a lot of healing, and I would talk to her about it. I didn't really focus on the negative part of it. I just always focused on the good part of it because I needed to keep her heart light.
Now let's move up to you. You left you eventually, when you left your parents, your mom and stepdad's house. You just decided one day to leave, that you weren't going to take it anymore.
Yes. The last fight that I witnessed was the most brutal. I had been at a friend's house and I had come home and I knew that they were going to be out doing something for the day or whatever. So I had plans with some friends and I came home and he had her in the living room on the couch and she was just bloody. He was just pounding on her face, just punching her and punching her. And he was actually like, it, from what I remember, it almost looked like he was like kneeling on top of her, just, punching her. And he had a gun on the coffee table. And I just thought, oh my God, he's going to kill her. So I ran in, I pulled him off. That's the day that he grabbed me by the neck and had me held against the wall. And it was at that point, the evil in his eyes scared me. I was like, oh my God. I just knew I had to get out of there. I wanted to protect my mom. I knew that I'd stopped him from beating her, but I had to get out of there. So I took off running to get out the back door. And I had to run around to the front of the house to get up to the neighbors. And as I turned, and he started chasing me. And I didn't realize it at the time because I was just trying to get out of there. When I turned around, as I was coming around the front of the house, I turned around to look back to see if he, was gaining on me. And he had stopped at the corner of the house and had the rifle in his hand pointed right at me. And I thought, oh my God. So I just kept running because I thought, I'm not going to stop now. Why he didn't shoot me, I have no idea. It's probably, as we've alluded, that he was afraid that if I did get shot, it's, you can't hide this one.
Right, exactly.
But my mom was in the hospital for over a week after that one. And the doctors had said more than once that they were surprised she survived, that she wasn't a vegetable. That if I wouldn't have come in when I did, she probably wouldn't have been with us.
So now your mom had been in the hospital more than once so would she take herself? Would he take her?
It was usually the cops were called and the ambulances would come.
And this man never went to jail?
Nope.
Welcome to the 1970s, huh?
I think the very last one, I believe he did, because I think it was so bad that the cops couldn't ignore it. But she didn't press charges. So he got out. And it was at that point when she came home and stuff, I did have the discussion with her that we couldn't live like that anymore. It wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to me. And I was thinking of my little sister more than any of it. I told her, my little sister can't take this. No. I said, if you take him back, I'm leaving. I'm not staying in this house any longer.
I just cannot imagine the bravery of you at 13 and saying those things. I mean, that is so mature.
I think it, when I do see teenagers that are 13, 14 years old, I'm like, they are so innocent and naive. It's like, how did I don't know. I really don't.
And you know what? is even more beautiful as you have gone on to heal or somewhat heal, create a beautiful family, raise, beautiful children. So you made it through such a horrific experience.
Mhm.
Now, when you left, after that fight and you left, did your sister go with you, your little sister?
Yes. Yes, we
And
both.
then y'all went and lived with your sister, right? Your older
My older
sister.
sister.
Mhm. And just for everyone watching, it was not that your dad, but your dad was not home a lot. He was a truck driver, right?
Yes.
So he technically had custody, but he needed someone who could be with y'all on a daily basis. And so it was your older sister. Now, when you went to live with your older sister, did you tell her any of the stories or what was going on, or was it pretty much common knowledge what was going on?
She kind of knew, but I don't think anybody realized the magnitude of it until the last fight, where it couldn't be hidden anymore. I mean, she was in the hospital for over a week, so because it just kept getting worse and worse.
So now, would you say, do you have a concept of how often he would lose it like that? Was it once a week, twice a week, once every other week? Do you have a concept of how long, how often?
It seemed like it was at least 2-3 times a month. It would get,
Mm-hmm.
bad. And most of it, they both like to go to the horse races. So most of the fights were like if they had been at the races and they were drinking and they had, it seemed like if they had a bad day and they lost a lot of money,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which makes sense.
And I do feel, I don't know, well, probably because you mentioned, because I was going to say, as you were talking, I'm seeing them coming in the door. And so the kitchen must have been right inside y'all's door. Was the kitchen right
Yes.
inside the door? Because I'm seeing them coming into the kitchen and instantly that's where it happens.
Mhm.
So that's what your mom is showing me, like them coming in a door. And the kitchen was the first place they hit. And so then he's just instantly, I feel like pushing her and she falls down and then it's just game on. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of details of it, but I will mention that when I had talked to your mom the other day and I had teared up with all those women around her, because it wasn't just, yes, taking someone's life is terrible, but these women were horrifically, in my mind, I would say tortured. And you did, and we're not going to mention that some of the details, but you did mention some of the things that he had done to your mom, which were just torturous. Like, yes, being beat like that is also torturous, but little things that also were torturous. Okay, so now let's go up to the point where you are now no longer living with your mom, you're living with your sister. How long after, do you know how long it was after you left the house that your mom then left him? Because she did end up leaving him, right?
I believe, yes. It was only about a year.
And did you have a lot of contact with your mom between that time?
Yeah, I would call her and talk to her. I would actually go down and visit her. Because they had ended up selling the home that we lived in and moved into a different home. So I would go and visit. He was never there when I was there. And I don't, we just always went when he wasn't around.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last time that I seen her alive was at her new apartment. She had left and moved out.
Mm-hmm.
And alluded that she was going to leave him permanently, that she just couldn't take it anymore. And that was right around Christmas time.
Although a lot of people want to judge ladies in that kind of environment, like, why do they stay so long? Why do they stay so long? And I want to give a little bit of psychology rolling into that it's not an instantaneous thing. People like your stepdad reel them in with their, charming, their magnetic personality.
Mhm.
And then when the abuse starts, it's never going from no abuse to your mom being put in the hospital. No, I wouldn't say never, but it's rarely that extreme. It's more of a gradual thing. And then it had to do with your mom's personality. Your mom, just tapping into her while she's in spirit, had an amazingly beautiful big heart.
She did. She was, she had the most beautiful smile. Her laughter would just light up a room.
Yes, I feel that in her, tapping into her. And she always looked for the good in people.
And I feel that that's where I get it from, because I always want to see the good. And some people are like, oh, Marie, it's not all rainbows and flowers. I'm like, yes, it is.
Leave me alone. It is. And I do feel like that. And your mom is even now telling me that she just always remembered what he was like and knew what he could be.
Yes.
And this is a little bit, I will call, when people come to me, like emotional intelligence. Your mom had a little bit extreme, but when you understand why someone is behaving the way they are, so you excuse their behavior.
Yes.
Emotional intelligence is great if you just use it to understand a person, but it becomes not great if you start using it to excuse their behavior.
Yes.
And so you had your mom's huge heart, along with this emotional intelligence of understanding, oh, it's because we lost money. Oh, it's because he was drinking. Oh, it's because of this. It was that. She kept excusing it until she just couldn't anymore.
Yes.
Now, how she ended up, what the police told you is she took her own life, but it was back at where he lived, right?
No,
it was
that's
where
not
she lived.
Yes.
And so
we were told that she was found in her car.
In her car, in her garage, or where was this car?
It was out front of her new place.
Okay.
She parked on the street.
Do y'all know anything about that day?
No. I was up getting ready for school, and so we got a call like it had to have been like 6:30 in the morning is when we got the phone call. And I didn't answer the phone. At the time, I was over at my cousin's house, and they sat me down in the kitchen and told me.
And so do they know? I know that this was the 1970s or what, early 80s. This wasn't the days of cameras. Like there's so many cameras around nowadays. We can somewhat track people's
cell phones.
Right? I know the days. So now she's at her apartment, and you got the call early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning. Did they say how long she had been gone?
They just said that they had found that she'd been found in her car.
Because I feel like it had been quite some time.
It might have been. It could have been. She could have. I don't know. That's just. There just wasn't. It was just kind of an odd. There just wasn't a lot of information given to.
But I'm also feeling there wasn't. What your mom is saying. There was not a lot of information looked for.
No, we had asked. We had a cousin that had friends in the police station, and we had asked, can you look into this? And she approached a couple, and then we were told there's nothing, just stand back. Don't pursue it. Leave it alone.
So as a medium, I get information in different ways. And so this time your mom is showing me a symbol, and what she showed me was someone picking up the corner of a rug and brushing stuff under it, like just brushing it under the rug.
Yep.
Because I feel like there were people around, your mom is saying, that had heard things that would have made the story questionable. Like, I don't know if there was enough proof. Your mom is not saying she's doing this. Like, it would have been questionable. Not saying there was definitive proof that she did not take her own life, but there's certainly, if they had been questioned, and I'm seeing if they had been around, like if people had spread out and started asking around.
Yes.
That there would have been people seen, noises heard that would have questioned what was said. Now comes up to the point, was the first thing I saw when you came in. You came in my office, I saw you had a mom in spirit, and the whole time. And then you said something about your mom had taken her own life. And in my head, I'm like, and I couldn't decide, because as a medium, I also will always deliver the truth, but I want to do it with love and healing. And I never want to shock someone or, shock their system. But I just wanted so badly to blurt out, and mom did not take her own life. I eventually got to that, but I didn't blurt it out. I tried to what I call sidestep it.
Yes.
So I can deliver it gently. And then you said, that was when we got back to when you said, oh, another medium had said that also.
Yes.
And And so then they said your mom had shot herself,
Yes.
which just does not make sense to me, but okay. I'm just hearing what your mom is saying, that the way the scene was, and of course, I have not seen pictures, just for anyone listening to this, I have not seen pictures. I don't know. But from what your mom is saying, her taking her own life would have been almost a physical impossibility. So she didn't use a pistol, she used a rifle?
That's what we were told.
That she used a rifle.
Mhm. And I never told you that.
No, you didn't. But your mom is showing me that, because she
Well,
said it was she's saying it was a physical impossibility. And so I said, it was, how is that? And so she dropped in, she used my clairvoyance to drop in, like, it's this long rifle, and her arm was not even long enough to pull the trigger and it get her.
Mhm.
So was
Yeah,
your mom
that's why we questioned it.
was your mom a petite lady?
Yeah, she was little like me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because she's showing me her arm won't even reach down.
Mhm.
And so it was just a physical impossibility.
So interesting, because I never mentioned, I just said gunshot wound.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
never
you know,
even in our car.
I was getting nosy. I was like, okay, so you didn't take why, what happened? And then your mom was trying to show me, yeah. So if it had been looked into, welcome to the 1970s, I tell you.
Well, and I'm blessed for that information, because I always wondered, was it truly a rifle? I don't know. I never seen the scene.
But you were told it was?
Mhm.
Okay. But I'm also seeing that your mom was incapacitated. Like, I see her struggling a little bit, but it's that feeling again that I get when people have either drank a ton or mixed drugs and alcohol, and they're just, you don't have the fight in you.
Mhm.
And like, I see her trying to push away and push, but she just didn't have the strength. So there is so much more to this story.
Yes.
And so there will be, for everyone listening, there will be a part 2 where we will get into more of where we're going with this, what has been discovered about your stepdad. And I do want to mention, I didn't count. Like, when the spirit stepped up behind your mom, I didn't count them. I could just see, so envision someone standing there, and they were just like a triangle out from your mom.
Okay.
All these women. And I didn't realize who they were in the beginning. I thought they were relatives. And in my head, I'm thinking, when someone walks into my office and I see there's a spirit with them with that many other spirits, I was like, oh my goodness, they've lost a lot of loved ones. That was my initial reaction until we got into it. And I realized, oh, those are the women
Okay.
that passed due to your stepfather. And I was also second guessing myself, because I was like, how could that be? But you did say that one of his daughters came forward, and she said it was what? How many?
She's saying between 50 and 70.
Mm-hmm.
But they keep saying that she's changed her story a couple times. So I really don't know.
And I will say, if you know anything about trauma, how trauma affects the brain, I'm not surprised she's changed her story. For one thing, she was young.
Yes.
And she was traumatized.
Yes.
Severely. And the child, I know she's a grown woman now, but I'm feeling very strongly there was 3 times definitively she came within a hair of losing her own life. And the only thing that protected her was the fact that if someone else passed that connected to him, he had been looked into. And so whenever our brain remembers trauma, it does not remember it in a linear fashion. It doesn't go step A to done. The way our brain stores trauma memories are stored in a different area and a different way than our normal memories are. So when you remember the day at the beach, you remember packing up your car. You can remember everything you did going to the beach and coming home, because it's stored in a different way, but trauma is stored much differently. And so the way we retrieve it is sporadically and by piecemeal. Also, what I'm hearing from your mom is she has pieces of her memory that are missing to protect her psyche.
Oh,
So as you'll see, a lot of people, if they had a really traumatizing childhood, they don't always remember all of it. And it's just your body's way of protecting you.
yes, which I do truly believe, because there's just things you don't want to, or you don't need to remember.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being here today, Marie. Now, for everyone watching, we will do a part 2 where we're going to delve into this a little bit more and talk in a little bit more detail. This is only going to be from what Marie can remember, and we will say that some of what she remembers that is true, and then what I pull up psychically cannot be proven. Now, Marie will have her definitively what happened, and some of the things that now, when you're told things that people are saying about what happened in your childhood, you look back and you can see, like, oh, I can see how that happened. I can see how that happened. It all makes sense. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today, Marie. You're very brave. I so admire you for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me. I know this is a lot. It's a lot for anybody to, and I wanted it in my words. I wanted it on my terms, and I'm so blessed to have met you.
I thank you. I feel the same. And the way that you're facing this with love in your heart, I mean, it's a horrific situation.
Mhm.
But the first thing you said to me was,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I just want people to know that he was not all bad. He just turned bad, and people do turn bad. But it honestly is hard for me to believe that he could be this bad. So you don't want to believe the worst in people. And I'm my mother's daughter. I want to believe the good.
Your mom definitely was like that. She definitely, but she wouldn't have changed it. Like, even looking back at her life, she would not have changed her ability to see people at who they were at their core, like the love, because we all, no matter how horrific someone is, we all have that piece of us that is loving and that is good.
Mhm.
And your
There
mom
will be
had,
more love.
yes, your mom had an unbelievable ability to tap into people and see the good in absolutely everyone.
Mhm.
All right. I want to thank everyone for listening today, and stay tuned for part 2. My how to contact me will be in the verbiage of this if you have any questions or anything you want to add to the story. I look forward to talking to Maria again. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.